Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. My name is Prashant Dhawan. Continuing our Countries of the World series, in this video we shall know about Egypt. It's a fascinating land, it has a very interesting history. So we shall learn about its past, its present and the future prospects of this great nation. So let's start our video now, shall we? And if you are preparing for any exam, then StudyIQ's pen drive and tablet courses are with you. Our courses are available for all the exams that you see on the screen. SSC, Bank, RBI, Grade B, UPSC. So you can visit this website studyiq.com, order the pen drive course of your choice and start preparing for any examination at home. Egypt. It's a fascinating country. Well, first of all, in order to understand this country, we must understand its identity. Is Egypt an Arab country? Is it an African country? Well, first of all, Egypt is very much an Arab nation. Although, if you go to Egypt, you will find out that they speak Egyptian Arabic. They don't speak the Arabic that is spoken in Saudi Arabia or UAE. Over the years, they have mixed the Arabic from the Arabian Peninsula with the ancient Egyptian languages and they have morphed it into something new. But still, Egypt remains very much an Arab nation. When we talk about the Arab world, well, first of all, the Arab world isn't exactly an official terminology. It is just used to describe all these countries. You see, all these countries are part of the Arab world. The Arab world mostly consists of all the nations in the Arab League. The Arab League is a regional organization of Arab states in and around North Africa, Horn of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. So as you can see, this is North Africa. This right here, this is the Horn of Africa and this is the Arabian Peninsula. So all the countries in this region are part of the Arab League. And interestingly enough, the center point of the Arab League is not Saudi Arabia, Yemen or UAE. It is actually the country of Egypt, because even the administrative center of the Arab League is in Cairo, that is the capital of Egypt. Now have a look at this map. All the green colored countries over here, they are part of the Arab League and they are part of the Arab world. And you can see this is Egypt right in the center of the Arab world. Egypt actually has the most population of all the Arab League nations. As you can see, it has a population of over 90 million people. Even a country like Algeria. Algeria, as you know, is the largest country in the African continent and of course the Arab League as well. Even Algeria doesn't have that many people as Egypt has. Actually, Algeria's population is less than 50% of Egypt's. And you can also see that the rest of the countries like Sudan, Iraq, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, all these countries pale in comparison to Egypt when it comes to the number of people that they have in their nation. Now, why is it so? Why does Egypt have such a huge population? Let's understand this. Now, why does Egypt have a population of 90 to 93 million people? A lot of factors are involved here. The first factor can be their very high fertility rate. Egypt has had a very high fertility rate for a very long time now. Right now their fertility rate is more than 3.4. That means their population is actually increasing in very large numbers. Very soon they will cross the 100 million mark. But we need to understand something else over here as well. As you can see, most of their population is densely packed around the river Nile. You will see that this is a map of the population density of Egypt. The lighter the color, that means the fewer people live there. The darker the color, that means more people live here. So you can see the dark color is very near this very thin line. This line is actually the flow of the river Nile. The river Nile provides Egypt with a lot of land that can be used for agricultural purposes. It can be used for farming. So that is why historically a lot of important cities were built around this very important river, even in the ancient times and now in the modern era as well. The Nile River is actually commonly regarded as the longest river in the world. Of course, some people say it is the Amazon, but most people agree that it is definitely the Nile River. It is the longest river in the world, and in Egypt, the main water source is the Nile River, where 99% of the Egyptian population are concentrated along the river banks of the Nile River. The Nile River, which is around 6,853 kilometers long, is an international river, because it covers 11 countries, namely Tanzania, Uganda. Let me just show you on a different map. You will see this is the Nile River. Alright, it starts from here and then it flows into the Mediterranean. It is actually going from the south to the north. Alright, do not confuse that this river starts in the Mediterranean and then flows down. No. Its origin is very much debatable. Where does it begin? Because some people believe that it begins in the Lake Victoria region right here. Lake Victoria, as you know, is between Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. And from here, it has some more tributaries, and then it starts flowing, and it provides water to all these countries, as you can see. It has a very important tributary that starts from Ethiopia, Lake Tana. As you can see, this is Lake Tana, and it starts from here, and then it becomes the Blue Nile, and it becomes a tributary of the Nile River, and then it provides water to the country of Sudan, and more importantly, the country of Egypt. Finally, it flows into the Mediterranean Sea right here. Now, recently, the river Nile has become the bone of contention between two important countries, Egypt and Ethiopia. As you can see this right here, this is the country of Ethiopia, and it has a very important tributary of the Nile River. This tributary makes Nile River strong enough to provide water to a lot of agricultural projects in Egypt. And Egypt desperately requires the Ethiopian tributary to make sure that the Nile River gets ample water flow. What Ethiopia has decided to do is Ethiopia will build a grand Ethiopian Renaissance dam project right over here, which will automatically reduce the flow of water, and it might affect countries like Sudan and Egypt. It probably won't affect Sudan all that much, but it will definitely affect the country of Egypt, and Egypt might face a water crisis if this dam is built by the year 2025. So in a not too distant future, you might see a war in Africa over the water of the river Nile, as Ethiopia is very near the completion of the Nile River dam. Ethiopia sees the dam as the key to its economic future, but its neighbor to the north, Egypt, fears the dam could spell doom for its water supply. The dam will cost around $4 billion, and it is called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, as I told you earlier, and it will generate more than 3 times the amount of energy produced by the Hoover Dam in the US. Now, one question that I ask all of you is that where is the Hoover Dam located in the US? In which state is the Hoover Dam located? Write in the comment box below. So when this dam will be completed, it will actually be the largest dam in the African continent, and it will generate electricity of 6,450 megawatts. Now let's talk about the Egyptian timeline. I want to explain two terminologies here. One is circa. What does circa mean? Circa means sometime around. So suppose if I say circa 1970. So I'm saying that somewhere around 1970. I'm not sure whether it is 1972, 1971. So I'm saying somewhere around this time period. So of course we don't really know when exactly did the first settlements came to the Nile Valley. We can only guess. So we are saying that circa 7000 BC. BC of course means before Christ. So in 7000 BC, the first settlements began near the Nile River. Then it took 4000 years. Circa 3000 BC, the kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt united. It took 4000 years to make that happen. And then there were successive dynasties. They witnessed flourishing trade, prosperity, and development of great cultural traditions. And of course, that's when the construction of the pyramid started around 2500 BC. It was a formidable engineering achievement. People, even in 2018, wonder and marvel at the astonishing engineering feat that is the pyramids of Egypt. Now, I would also like to mention that after 3000 BC, a lot of pharaohs emerged in Egypt as well. One of the most famous pharaohs, of course, was Ramses II, also known as Ozymandias by the Greeks. Now, this pharaoh was quite cruel, and well, he was actually very important in Egypt's history as well. So, just trying to make sure that you know about this pharaoh as well. A lot of poems have been written on this pharaoh. So, later on, after the era of pharaohs declined, and now we are in 669 BC. Not a lot of pharaohs anymore in Egypt, because now Egypt is under Mesopotamia. As you know, the Mesopotamian civilization, it began in modern day Syria, Iraq, around this area. Alright. And later on, the people over here, they became so advanced, they became so powerful that they captured this region over here as well, because this area was quite fertile, and they thought that this will become a very important part of their empire. So after 669 BC, the Assyrians from the Mesopotamia Empire, or rather the civilization, they conquered and started ruling Egypt until the Persians arrived. Now, I would also like to mention that Mesopotamia was one of the few important civilizations during the ancient era. You can see this is the Indus Valley civilization in India. This right here is the Chinese civilization. This green part, this is the Egyptian civilization. And this right here, this is the Mesopotamian civilization. And these guys ruled over Egypt later on. So later on in 525 BC, the Persians conquered this part over here. Alright, this here is of course Egypt. So after the Mesopotamian civilization's invasion, it was now the turn of the Persians. This, as you know, this was the Persian Empire at its zenith. It started in Persia, modern day Iran, and Darius led his armies to victories all over this region. So after the Persians had ruled over Egypt for a very long time, then it was the turn of the Greeks. So in 332 BC, Alexander the Great king of Macedonia, he conquered Egypt and he founded the city of Alexandria. Alexandria, as you know, is a city of Egypt even in 2018. I'm recording this video in 2018. You might be viewing it in 2020 as well. So as you can see, this right here, this is Alexandria, and this important city was founded by Alexander the Great after he conquered this piece of land. So after the Greeks, the Romans decided to attack Egypt and they were very much successful. So in 31 BC, the Roman Empire attacked the Egyptian Empire, and at that time Queen Cleopatra was not able to defend her country and her armies fell, and after Octavian's army defeated Cleopatra's forces, she chose to commit suicide. At least this is what history tells us. Then after that, many years later, many centuries later, comes the very important Arab conquest. So this is how Islam gradually spread to Egypt. You can see it started in Saudi Arabia, around this region, and then it spread all over this region and in Egypt as well. And a lot of Arabs decided to settle in Egypt during this time. This conquest is the reason behind Egypt's inclusion in the Arab League. And if you thought that was the last time Egypt got invaded by someone, then you are wrong, because after that, after the Arab invasion, centuries after that invasion in 1517, Egypt was absorbed into the Turkish Ottoman Empire. So you can see this is the Ottoman Empire, and they invaded parts of Egypt, primarily Cairo and Alexandria. There was not much to invade over here, it is just a barren desert. So they invaded the most fertile and important lands of Egypt, and once again Egypt was under foreign rule. After that, Egypt was under British rule as well. But before that, I would also like to mention that Suez Canal was built between 1859 to 1869. Suez Canal, as you know, was a very important part in bridging the European continent to the Asian continent. Allow me to show you on the map the importance of Suez Canal and why the Egyptian government invested so much money in that. So as you can see, this is our lovely country India. If you go westwards, you will see this important country of Egypt. It is surrounded by some countries as well, like Libya, Sudan. It shares its border with Libya, Sudan, Israel and the Gaza Strip. You can see it has a very long border with Israel, and it also has a very small border with the Gaza Strip, or whatever is left of it. So this right here, this is Egypt. Now imagine before the Suez Canal, if you were a merchant from India and you had to reach Europe, you would have to take a very long route in order to reach Europe, wouldn't you? You would start from here, then cross the Mozambique Channel, and then all over here, and then cross the Strait of Gibraltar, and then enter the European market right here, and then you were able to sell, right? But what Egypt did was, it carved a canal over here, right? It carved a canal to create a waterway so that ships can actually sail from the Arabian Sea all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. So this important canal, it connected Europe to Asia, and it is used extensively even today. Countries like India, Indonesia, Australia, even China, they use this route to reach Europe. So as you can see, if you want to reach Mediterranean, the shortest route would be go through the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, then the Suez Canal right here, and then you can enter the Mediterranean Sea. And this canal was financed by the Egyptian government. So building the Suez Canal costed a lot of money and it nearly bankrupted the Egyptian government. Of course, one question can be, were the Egyptians so good that they wanted to give this gift of Suez Canal to the world by bankrupting themselves? Well, no, that is obviously not the answer. The intent was to collect fee from all the cargo that would use the Suez Canal, and eventually it would become a very profitable venture. It still is a very profitable venture, but at that time it cost a lot of money, and Egypt was nearly bankrupt. So now that the Egyptians were quite weak, the British noticed this and they attacked the Egyptian army, and the British troops were able to defeat the Egyptian army quite easily, and they took control of Egypt again. And in 1914, Egypt formally became a British protectorate, once again under foreign rule. Now, one question that you can ask is that since Egypt was under British rule, why didn't they join the Commonwealth nations like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka? Well, the very obvious answer is they chose not to, and we can also attribute this to the fact that Egyptians never quite stood with the British in major world wars. For example, India supported the British army both in World War I and World War II, whereas Egypt went against the British Empire. And even though Egypt was a British protectorate, they pretty much handled their own affairs themselves. They were not mistreated like Indians were mistreated like British in India. So a lot of former British protectorates never quite joined the Commonwealth of Nations like Egypt, Iraq, and all these countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar. All these were British protectorates, but they never really bothered joining the Commonwealth of Nations. So finally, in 1922, 28 February 1922, Egypt managed to achieve independence from the United Kingdom, and this was the flag of Egypt when it was under the United Kingdom. Moving on, this right here is a very important mountain in Egypt. It is the highest mountain in Egypt actually. It is located right over here in the Sinai Peninsula. This right here, this is called the Sinai Peninsula, and this is home to Mount Catherine, the highest mountain ever in Egypt. Alright, just remember this. It might be asked in some exam because Egypt was in the news a lot recently. Moving on, the currency of Egypt is the Egyptian pound, and it has been devalued a lot recently. As you can see, there was a time when around one Egyptian pound was equal to 8 or 9 rupees, but now one Egyptian pound is equal to 3 or 4 rupees. It keeps on fluctuating. The reason behind this devaluation is because the Egyptian economy isn't growing as fast as it should. So as you can see, this is their GDP growth rate for the year 2016, only 4.3%. It is actually lower than that of a country like Pakistan. Pakistan actually grew at a growth rate of around 5%. And of course, Egypt recently joined the International Solar Alliance as well. Egypt became the 61st country to sign the framework of the International Solar Alliance. So just make sure you remember this, because of course Egypt has huge potential for solar power development. Now the country of Egypt has a very bright future. Of course, they will have to do something about the Nile Dam project that Ethiopia is building. If they don't do something, then of course there will be war with Ethiopia in the near future. Or if that doesn't happen as well, then by 2025 Egypt might become a very dry piece of land, and their population will shrink drastically. Hopefully none of that happens. Hopefully all the countries manage to solve their differences together by peaceful means. And with this hope, let's end this video. Do make sure to like it, share our video on Facebook, WhatsApp, or wherever you can. And that's all I have to say. God bless you all.